Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of TKD Coach Academy's Fight Chat Friday. So we are Adrian Byrne and Richie Ford, and every Friday we aim to bring you a little bit of the very best of ITF competition, performance and coaching. And if that sounds like a conversation you'd be interested in, then like this video, hit the bell button and subscribe, and that way you will hear absolutely everything we do every Friday. So this week's topic, We've actually gone back a little bit to 2018 to the ITF European Championships in Maribor, Slovenia, and to have a look at not one fight but a full section. So Richie, what inspired this?
Yeah, so TKD Techers, one of the YouTube channels that are showcasing some great ITF content. So if you haven't checked that out already, make sure and do so. That's Master Johan de Silva. So check out their stuff. They've got a new app out as well, but they came out with some great videos there during the week of the minus 63 division with some really high level guys involved there. So some really good contests, and myself and Adrian were just having a chat back and forth about some things that we were noticing and some things we've seen in the videos that some of the fighters were doing. So we said that, yeah, why not have it as our Fight Chat Friday episode this week, and just have a delve into some of the things that particular fighters are doing quite well.
Yeah, and I think that really is the key thing to it. So it's the very much the idea that one style does not fit all. So we've got some really effective performances from a range of fighters with quite different styles, and within the one weight class, the one weight division. I think that's really interesting to dig into and have a look at. I think there's sometimes an oversimplification of things that, you know, whatever it is that the winners are doing is the best way to fight in a particular division, or even, you know, right across the board that no, that is the best way to fight, or you have to be 6'2" to win, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. And it's nice to see, you know, some very different fighters being effective in what they do and pushing each other quite close. So one of the things about most of these matches is none of them were runaway wins. There was always a point in the match where the match was in the balance and both fighters had an opportunity to win it. And for me, that makes it really interesting.
Yeah, so it comes down to the small margins, really, you know, like things like warnings towards the end. And we see a couple of points here as well in some of these clips where it actually did come down to warnings late on, and that flipped it, or a last minute score. And it just makes things interesting, and people in the crowd cheering on and looking to get behind their fighters from their country and things like that. So yeah, it's all good for the sport, and definitely pushes things forward.
Yeah. So we might want to jump in with the first one, which is looking a little bit at Luke McGrath from Ireland. And he is a tall and rangy fighter and uses that really quite effectively here, you know, in this clip against Michael McRoberts.
Yeah, so very, very rangy, and, like, of course, using his strengths to maximum effect here by playing the long game. He's not really interested in coming too short, but then when he does, people are caught on the hop. So it's very, very effective to be able to play that long game and then catch people by surprise. And we're going to see it here as well in a couple of clips throughout today, where he actually uses that to his advantage, where people are trying to get through his range, and they think they have a big gap to get through and bypass, and then he just cuts them right off. So very, very effective and very good at what he does.
Yeah, you could easily think when you're sparring Luke, or, you know, working with him, that he doesn't want hands at all, that he wants nothing to do with it, because so much of it is about that front leg and keeping that and the distance and the ranges that he can put on, like, and he's quite effective in putting his psychic out at different ranges and in different ways. And so, you know, you're worried about the range or the distance between your hips as such for his psychic. You're worried about conceding a shot over the blindside shoulder, and then all of a sudden, oh, he has hands.
There you go.
And there you go.
And that was one of the moments there where someone was trying to, like, Michael was trying to get through that distance and break the range that he had.
Yeah.
And by coming through such a big range, Luke is able to just cut him off quite handy. So it's a valuable tool in his bag, and he's very, very effective.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that one again.
Steps right through that range that he's trying to bypass.
Yeah, and, you know, again, this one does result in a foul, and I suppose it begs the question for us, like, you know, was there anything so malicious or nasty in this one that you think, you know, we have one quick look again. Is it just a case of Michael drops and, you know, that makes it the foul, or is there, you know, is it clear that the contact is there? I mean, this is always one of the things when someone is coming forward and meets the shot, You know, like traditionally going back years ago, you kind of went, well, if you walk into it, the contact's on you, kind of a thing. But it's not really seen that way anymore.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting one as well, because this is the second round. Score is 2-2. There's 2 seconds left. Luke is going to take that win potentially, and he gets penalised, in my opinion, unfairly, and gets a minus point with a couple of seconds left on the clock. That's the contest in the balance, and it could be you out of your Euros for the year.
Yeah,
and going home without it potentially going all the way or reaching the final, or I think this might have been quarterfinal stage potentially, but
quarterfinals, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so like there you go, like it's a big stage, and obviously you said the both competitors are very high level, so there's small margins here, and something like that can really be the difference. And I think it just went, particularly in that sequence with 2-2, match in the balance, 5 seconds left, it could have easily flipped it the opposite way, and luckily it held out for 2-2.
Luckily for us, not so luckily for Mike McRoberts. But the way that match went, it stayed close the whole way. It was a draw after the 2 rounds, a draw after extra time, and it was a very, thereabouts sidekick that got Luke the win in that one. But it's one of those things where when our game is so often decided by those small things, it puts the referee in the spotlight a little bit. And I do think that where we're sitting with our fouls, it's putting referees in a very challenging position. So we have a look at Michael doing some great stuff as well in that fight, because again, like I said, this one is absolutely to the wire, like the whole way through. And he's so disruptive here.
What I really like about Michael here is he is disruptive with that front leg, and just because he's the smaller fighter, he's not leaving Luke have his way with that front leg battle. He's really getting busy there, and he's looking to almost like put Luke on edge with his front leg, not to get a bit of momentum going, and then any chance he can get, he's trying to get in there. And just the rhythm of that is makes it a bit difficult for Luke as well. And he's playing with a little bit of angles here and there, and he's making it very tricky for Luke. And then he just catches him lovely here with a side kick, all because of that. It's that disruption, not leaving Luke just settle and get his own flow going.
And I mean, you add to that the fact that again, Michael's fighting left-sided, and that in itself, often creates a little bit of a challenge, just because no matter what, when we look at the high level, there's a disproportionate number of left-legged fighters who are up there compared to what you'll see when you're at home.
That was very nice.
And I think you're always going to find that there's no particular advantage to being left-legged. It's just the fact that right-legged fighters tend to fight right-legged fighters 90% of the time, and then left-legged fighters fight right-legged fighters 90% of the time. So they're used to it, and you're not. Is often what happens. So you add to that Michael being disruptive, having good range there on occasion, and as I said, beating the taller fighter for height on the hip is that's quite good. That's a sign that your distance and your timing is really, really good. Yeah,
and like how many times has that come up in the amount of episodes we've done on Fight Chat Friday now at this stage, just being on top when it's a front leg battle. It's so important. But Michael does a great job, I think, of just playing with the rhythm as well, just not leaving Luke settle, and he's like push pull very, very subtly and slightly. And it just keeps Luke on edge, because Luke wants to keep it long. He's like, okay, is it long, is it not, is it long, is it not? And then towards some of these clips here, like Luke has to go and almost chase it a little bit and put the pressure on Michael, because he's just been so, and that was really nice there, just that push pull we talked about, of he just comes out of range and back into range as Luke commits. So very effective work there from Michael as well.
And the focus and concentration it takes to do that over a 4-minute match, and then your minute of additional time as well, that could be understated. So it takes a great degree of concentration, because you'll naturally fall into your own rhythms, and then your partner, your opponent can pick up on that, where you have to keep your rhythm, quite varied. If you're controlling it and trying to lead your opponent with it, you have to be one who's constantly creating variation in it. And to keep that up for 4 minutes is obviously really rather challenging. And I think Michael in that match does that really well, to keep Luke all the time, not as effective as he would otherwise be. Because if Luke has a stationary target to hit, or someone who's moving predictably, all of a sudden he's hitting you in the head and you're 6 and 9 and 12 points down. We've seen that with his matches so often, and even in team sparring, where someone's a bit less mobile, a little less conscious of their distance, and all of a sudden they're getting 2 headshots and the match is done. You know, but speaking of front leggers, so we had a lovely, a hell of a match with Timothy Boss and Luke, and it was an absolute humdinger. But maybe we have a look at that front leg battle and the building of intensity that kind of came out of that.
Yeah, so like this is, I think this is towards the latter half of the second round. The match is in a balance here again, very close. And Timmy has to go route one, and he's looking to really put the pressure on Luke. Luke is just trying to get a bit of space for himself so he can get back to using that leg again, like we see here. And Timmy's just literally trying to get through that range to get busy and find some scores. And it's something that I think, like, unfortunately for Timmy, like, his style is very entertaining, very aggressive, and it suits him so much more in kickboxing because you can get that continuation.
Yeah.
And I think that just the way the rule set is in ITF, it doesn't suit him as much, and he's not getting the rewards that he would or should get.
Yeah.
And like, he's almost being stopped anytime he gets to work, which is Luke is playing that into his favor, absolutely. But just unfortunate for Timmy that anytime he seems to like corner his opponent or get a bit of a run on them, the match is stopped.
Yeah, and it's one thing that where, like, when you look at Timmy, like, he does concede scores. Like, we've watched him against Julio Carlos, we've watched him against quite a few people over the episodes that we've done, and he does concede scores. His matches are exciting because there's scoring on both sides. But one of the things he does exceptionally well whenever the opportunity develops is he continues. So, I think we actually watched him against Sanan Lucic as well. But even if there's a score, he's not stopped. And and what it does is it does build that momentum. It does build that the kind of the opportunity to score increases as time goes on while he's still in continuation. So, like, that's what he's relying on. And what's happening, like, and you could look at it from a strategic point of view, and Luke is not letting him engage until Luke has the safety of an out, so he can be pushed out, he can concede a warning. And that's not a good strategy for most fighters, because you'll travel out enough and you'll end up, losing on the warnings anyway. The problem is that when Luke scores, he tends to score these long side kicks to the hip. He tends to score these over-the-shoulder headshots. And when you've got 3 points, you can take 2 or 3 warnings to get you in a better position in the ring to score 3 points again. And, whereas if it's a much closer, like, if the scores that you're getting are lower value or they're harder for the referees to see in the various corners, you might find yourself losing those warnings and being behind on 2 scorecards. And I think, in some ways he ends up that way against Michael from time to time, as well. And I think that's something that, is kind of, it's a scary game to play.
Like, if it was on the flip side and Luke was just very dominant with hands, for example, like, that style would definitely not work, because, as you said, like, 1 punch versus 3 points for a head kick, like, every time you concede a warning, you're going to be under pressure again. You're after losing a third of that point that you got.
Totally different.
You know what I mean? It's a different ball game completely.
But I think it's one of those things that you'd love to see Timmy get purchased a little earlier in the ring, just to one additional match, just to let him get that shot off before it leaves. Also, like, I mean, if you were working with Timmy, it was like, well, how do you get more continuation in ITF? Part of it is almost like you almost have to pull back and go again, and I think, like, Jenny Lahan does that exceptionally well. There's a few other, like, Julio does this quite well, so the burst is in there, but they'll take off the pressure a little bit, so the person doesn't quite get the opportunity to to fold, to turn, to travel. And then it's back in again. So as they hit,
I think Igor Maximenko was quite good at that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. That's a really good call actually as well. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that plays around our rule set very well. It's like, if you can break before the referee has a chance to break the match and hit again, I think that's, it really does wonders for your score. Yeah, definitely. So with that, there's a particular strategy that's come up a couple of times. And I don't think Luke has the best implementation of the technique there. And he gets penalised. He gets a warning for this a couple of times. But, it does bring up the whole thing of...
Get punched in the face or move your head. It's one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, does it come down to how you move your head? Like, Luke tends to just plant the feet and duck and then move, which isn't ideal. But he does get out of there, and
I think it's just as well his frame is so long that obviously, like, for him to duck, it's not as graceful as like somebody who's more like compact and lower to the ground, so
and from a longer stance.
Exactly. So that big long duck, it just visually for the referees maybe might be saying, oh, there was a turn of the head there, but he's not really avoiding sparring, he's trying to avoid a shot. So like it could be very 50-50. Like a lot of like I reckon if you got 10 referees, like 50% might give that and 50% might not. It really is one of those it depends kind of situations.
I think for that particular strategy or shot, it can develop into a shot. Like the goal is definitely if you can get your front shoulder down and moving forward as you step the front foot through, and there's a rather than avoiding, there's I'm going over there, and there's nothing wrong with us deciding to, for example, throw a back kick, which is turning the back. There's nothing wrong with us deciding to make an angle turning kick off of a side kick, so we can cut an angle and throw a turning kick. That's not avoiding sparring. So the whole trick with this one is, because you're going through to the other side of the opponent, it has to be purposeful and not just moving away or avoiding. So I think if you can get your front, your lead leg, your lead shoulder, and your head past their shoulder, rather than ducking straight down, if you can get past their shoulder and get yourself turned about so you can attack again. I think that's the thing. It has to stay positive. Like if it doesn't go anywhere, then it kind of can be just avoiding sparring. But like if it's
I guess Alameen actually does that well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And circle around again.
Yeah, you'll definitely see it with Alameen. We have to probably give a shout out to Tural, who's got a few lovely clips of that shot in action as well. There's a few people who've done it very well. Rizmar has done it a couple of times as well, very nicely. But there are definitely people out there who do that shot very nicely and very well. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think on principle it should be penalised. It's just a case of, where does it go and what's the intent,
There's a difference between avoiding sparring and avoiding being hit, what I mean? And I think there's a crossover there that maybe there's some blurred line sometimes. It's sometimes really
you almost imagine like the rule set has been designed for two people who bounce here like this and kind of throw shots. And
like that's what we don't want. Like we don't want like a fencing match, and that's what the rule set is trying to get away from, really.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to encourage action and like we said earlier, continuation and things like that. Like the less amount the referee can stop and get involved in the match, the better. But of course, then you like it. That rule is there for safety. Obviously, you don't want someone to turn away and get hit in the back of the head or whatever. But like when somebody's trying to avoid a shot, and we've seen it in the first slow motion there, like there was a punch coming towards Luke's head and he just avoids it. I think, like obviously in real time as well, it's very difficult to be able to see that, depends on your angle, etc. But definitely an interesting talking point.
I think as well, it's one of those things where if Luke's normal practice, if what the referee comes to expect from Luke is that he goes into the corner and he does something and goes forward, that changes it a little bit from if the referee is expecting him to travel. So I think there's almost an element of like, are they stepping in before they see what he actually does? And then it's just like, well, I'll finish. I've started, so I'll finish. Whereas if if you have been standing toe to toe, if you have been fighting through the shots or whatever, and then this is how it continues this time, I think you might get a little bit more leeway. But referees are no different from the rest of us. If a fighter can fall victim to a set rhythm that someone then disrupts, or a pattern that you get dragged into, a referee can do that too, because it's how we process information, we chunk things. So if a referee is seeing the same kind of actions in the same kind of circumstances from one fight to the next, even, or from one competitor repeatedly, they may not react with what they see, but with what they expected to see. And that's why I think sometimes you see referees step in and they break the fight and then they go, nothing happened, carry on. Because you step in expecting to see something and then it didn't happen. It's just a thing, I suppose. Yeah. So let's have a look at Reuben. So Reuben Williams here in blue, and I think he has I said, a very upright side kick, and a very, very tight control of that passive aggressive distance. Is like where I'm going to just bounce here in front of you and we're quite close and I'm not going to throw anything until you flinch.
He's always a threat, really, like, isn't he? He's just he's there. He's like, you mess up, I'm going to get you. And yeah, very, very effective. It's interesting that psychic that he has with such an upright posture, and he's able to get that knee really high and shoot that psychic without any much leaning, and his knee isn't like angled down either.
No.
So yeah, it's a very, very effective psychic, and he can almost get it off from anywhere.
And what it does for him as well then is even when it goes a little too far, or it's short, or it hits an arm or whatever, he's always landing in a better balanced position because of the overall posture. And his ability to go from, you know what, that's landed or that's got me some purchase, and to then just continue and throw the next shot. You know, it's got really, really quite nice balance from it. And I think, you know, that's quite effective here against Cody. And, you know, it does let him as well. Like, a lot of them are very, very short. Like, there isn't even much stretch on the standing leg. You know, they really are quite short in that way. But then every now and again he pumps, and then, you know, there is that covering of distance, and it's short, sharp hop. So, I mean, I think he disguises his sidekicks very, very well. Like the bounce is very similar. The body position doesn't change. The back leg just shifts in the tiny little bit, and then up he goes. So I think if you're like coaching and you're advising your fighter, like, I don't think there's a great read on it, and I think you just kind of go, yeah, listen, don't let him start. You know, take a distance that you're happier with. You start, let him worry about it, and then go from there.
That's a good point. And he links it really well with his hands as well.
Yes.
It's kind of similar to what we said with Luke, is in like when somebody's worried about the leg, that's when the hands open up. And very, very effective with that sidekick, I have to say.
And it actually takes away one of Cody's strengths, which is, you know, he moves well. Like, Cody does move in and out of distance well, does pick shots well. But I think, I said, and I know I refer to it as like passive aggressive movement, but it's that kind of like, I'll just go to where this is kind of an uncomfortable distance for both of us, but I want to be there and you don't. And you know, it's that kind of like halfway between the hugging and kissing distance. It's just not nice, and you don't know what to do. So it's like, do I pick up the front leg? Ah, damn it, he's over the top of it. Do I try to go to hands? Oh, he's gone backwards. Do I move back and he's followed forwards? And I think Reuben lives well in that distance. And I think where people are effective against Reuben is when they disrupt that and they don't let him decide, yeah, this distance is good for me. And if they can make it longer, start from longer, or, you know, go close, take the side kick on the arm and go again, or, you know, tease in and out of it, draw the leg and go. Like, you have to be a little bit more active in your sparring against
like him. It's just, if you just hold in front of somebody like that, you're just going to get hit eventually, no matter what. So you have to be a bit more playful with the, like, kind of like what Michael was doing earlier with the rhythm, angles and distance, and just a little bit more playful on the straight line, we say.
I think so. Like, I think that really makes a big difference. I have to say, I really enjoyed watching the division because, like, I don't know if you find the same. Like, there's an attraction. Like, that was my division many, many moons ago. But, like, I still like watching the 63s. There's a style about it, or there's a familiarity to it. I still like watching, going back and watching the 63s. But don't know if you feel that about the 85s or the hypers, but I think the minus 85 division certainly is one of the more enjoyable ones, but 63 is always an entertaining one, like the very explosive athletes and quick, sharp guys there in those divisions. So 63 is a good one. It was actually the first division I ever fought in, 63. So where you ended, I started. I think even just with like coming out of COVID now at this stage, the weight's starting to go back down. So it's not like I've ever had much. I think that the heaviest I've ever been in my life is 78 kilos. So like, that was full on sitting on my arse for COVID and eating all around me, and I got up to 78. So I surprised myself. I was back down at 72 this morning. So it's like, okay, whoops, nice. There we go again. So we'll see how it goes. We had a question this week, so let me see if we can have a look at that one. So this one comes from Marcus K1, and I'm scared of losing in competition when going up against someone I should beat. And I think, wow, that is such a, it is a deep thought, and it's one that I've definitely encountered with some of our best athletes actually in Ireland in the past as well, where they just don't perform as well. You don't perform as well as you should when you have expectations on yourself around how you should perform, and it makes it difficult. So
it is an interesting one, because usually, like, we've actually seen this on the flip side as well, of like somebody who may be just slightly better than you, and you've come up against them before. But this one is an interesting one. It's somebody who you should beat, but like, obviously the nerves kick in and things like that. But I think one of the most important things about this is just what state are you in? Are you in that we spoke about a few times, the challenge state or threat state? Like, are you threatened by the situation, or is this another challenge for you? And it's like when somebody comes back from a big win and they're almost like afraid to go to their next tournament too early.
That's the one.
I just want to linger in that victory for a little bit longer, just in case I lose. But it's like, no, like you should go and challenge yourself and put yourself. It's the wrong mentality to be in, really, in terms of like long-term development and where you want to be. Like in terms of champion mindset, you don't want to be in that, like, oh, I'll survive here and hang on to that moment. It's more of a challenge. You want to challenge yourself a bit more. And
so much of it is being comfortable in, like, it's an ego thing, and I don't mean to say that the person feeling it is egotistical. What I mean is, like, if you are, we'll bring it down a level. We say you're a national champion, and then you're going into a tournament, 3 or 4 weeks later, and you've up against someone that you beat in the first round, and you're thinking, yeah, I should win this. I'm the national champion. What if I don't? What will people think? And what it is again, it's that loss of, you're not in the moment anymore. All of a sudden you're thinking about consequences that you have no control over. You can't control what those people think regardless. Who knows what they think about you now? They may think you didn't deserve to win it in the first place. Again, it doesn't matter. That there's, what does it mean to you, and what are the facts as they relate to you, and how do you interpret them? It's like nothing is intrinsically good or bad. It's how you choose to react to it that really determines the whole thing. But we have seen this where world champions have come back and they don't want to go into a competition because, well, what if I lose? And the answer is, well, what? Are you not the world champion if you lose? It's like, well, I don't want to lose as the world champion to others. You're not the world champion anymore. And it's like, and I've had that conversation, and Jamie, they came up in a podcast with Jamie Williams as well. And like, the conversation that I have with them is like, look, when you get to win a big tournament, you stand on that podium and you absolutely suck every bit of enjoyment out of it you can. Because the second you step off the podium, you're the former. You're the former world champion, former European champion, whatever it happens to be. So you really have to enjoy that moment up there. And
that's an interesting way to look at it, because like, some people would think, right, I'm the champion until the next Worlds or Euros or whatever. But that's a very interesting one.
I look at it both ways. I look at it as saying you're the champion forever. Again, But it's also in the past. So it's like, you will be the, say, 2017 world champion forever. No one will ever take that from you. It's in the record books. It's written down. Unless you failed your drug test, but it's written down, right? It's there. You can't have that taken away from you. You are the world champion. However, the second you come off that podium, you're the former world champion. It's already in the book. Somebody already wrote that stuff down. So it's history. It's done. Now is about moving forward. What do you do next? So I always think, like, going into those things is like, well, what do I want to learn from this match? What do I want to challenge myself with? And if you were to go the other way around and say, all right, let's take that a step further down the line. You say, hey, what if I had that mentality when I went to training and I couldn't lose a drill? I couldn't lose a constrained spar or a scenario. Well, now you're not learning anymore.
You're not learning.
You're not learning. So if like most top competitors, you go to your gym and you're the top dog in your gym, right? And that's common. Like, there's a few stables where I said that there's 5 or 6 top people, but they're not normally in the same division. They're normally in different divisions, and they're quality, but they're different divisions. Well, then how on earth do you develop? And the way you develop is by challenging yourselves, by making the drill or the exercise, like, I'm talking drills now because of our situation in Ireland, but like your spars, like, how do you make a spar valuable to you? Like, you can go and do what you always did and beat the people you always beat in your gym. So how do you make that useful? Well, you have to try something new. You have to make it challenging for you in a different way.
And like, we've actually done loads of posts on this, particularly on Instagram, the short captions talking about the mental side of the game. And a lot of time I bring up this whole idea of courageous challenge, and that's what we're talking about. It's like, even if you are that top dog, are you courageous enough to almost like play to something that you want to work on or whatever? Where like, you have to build bulletproof confidence you have to be almost like the person who's chasing the ultimate performance.
Yeah.
And to do that, you can't always like rest on your laurels. You need to go and be the person who's maybe like the play off your weaker side or go against somebody who's better than you, like we said. So it's always about that's where the courage comes in.
Yeah.
Of being courageous enough to put yourself in those situations. But I think a very interesting point as well is looking at the whole idea of like examining your beliefs. So like, what is it that you believe about yourself that means if you lose, that it's going to be like you're a failure if somebody's beaten you already?
Yeah.
You know, like that's a very interesting thing to look at as well. Like, where is that belief deep inside you that you believe that, okay, if this doesn't go my way, it's the like the world is over, like this is it, it's done.
And I think a lot of that will come down to, if we're honest, for most of us, is the idea that we have this fear that we're actually a fake, that that you won but you're not really the champion, that a champion wouldn't then go on and lose this, the imposter syndrome. But I mean, where this one really resonates with me, and the first time I really came across it, it was before I had people coming back from championships to have this worry about, if you like. But myself and Stephen Ryan had just gone training with Master Jedut in Poland, and one of the things he was telling me about as an exercise that he did with some of his guys, they went abroad to a smaller tournament in a country that wouldn't be as competitively developed as Poland, and he took his best competitors from his club, and at the time you would have had maybe Daniel Jawa, Miłosz Moskluk, Mariusz Suska, different people that would have been, at a top level for him in the club. I think Anita Pasek was there as well. But from my recollection of the story, so excuse me guys if I'm wrong, but the key point in it was they were all after coming back from European Championships and Polish Championships, and they were all champions. They were like, these were the top dogs at the time. But they were going to this tournament to support the development of the tournament, the development of the country, and whatever was involved there. So he said to them, it's like, okay, you have to set yourself a challenge. You have to make what you're trying to achieve in the spars so challenging, it probably won't work and you probably lose. And if you win this tournament, it better be because you've done things you've never in your life done. If that's what it's going to have to take for you to win. Otherwise, I'll make the challenge harder and harder and harder every round to make sure you lose. So the goal was to send everybody to go past their level of competence, or to bring them to a level of challenge they weren't there for. So the guys who had superb hands and really good distance and timing, right, you're going head hunting, go get some headshots, and it was that kind of thing. And as a squad and as a team, maybe it's easier to take when you all go and you do it together and you know what it's all about. Yeah. But we have to do that on an individual level, because you finish the championships, now you have to try and improve for the next one. And we can struggle with this a bit. If every tournament and every fight matters and goes into the record books and is a black mark or a gold star against your name, you can't ever be in a learning space and improve. So you have to have events that don't matter.
Yeah, that goes back to then, like, why are you doing it in the first place? Is your goal to be the champion of this small tournament, or is your champion to be like an all-time great or whatever? You know what I mean? And if that's the case, you can't really be honing, like you said, ticking off every single win you have, because there's nobody really going to go undefeated. Or if you do so, you're not really going to be you're not going to learn, you're not going to expand your knowledge, your expertise, whatever. You know what I mean? You need to be challenged. You need to push the boundaries a little bit. So if it's not in competition, it's definitely going to be in the gym. You have to lose somewhere. Yeah. I mean, like, the hardship is inevitable. You know what I mean? So I would just say, suck it up. Examine your beliefs behind why it is that you believe that way. Try to come at it more of a challenge state, more of a growth mindset approach. And
And again, thank you for the question, because it let us go off on a bit of a rant, and we love to do that. So, As we do. So again, thank you for that. So again, folks, I think if you have any ideas for next week's Fight Chat Friday, we'd love to hear from you on the comments in this YouTube video or in social media. Our Instagram is usually a great way to get hold of us, and we'd love to tackle whether it's a particular fight or a competition that you want to watch, a particular division you want to have a bit of analysis on, or a thought-provoking question that you'd like us to try and dig into. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So, Richie, I think that's all for Friday.
Yeah, that's it. So hopefully see you all in the next one. And make sure you subscribe, because I think it's like 40% of our viewers aren't subscribed. So yeah, definitely get involved there. Hit that button. It makes a big difference to everything we're doing. Shares out our content with more people as well. So yeah, the more you engage with it, the better it is for the whole community here, and we can get more engaging questions and hopefully get better content out as well. So yeah, that would be fantastic.
Thanks, folks. Have a great Friday.
See you in the next one.